All right, so we're going deep today into a story that's, well, it's really got it all tragedy, conspiracy theories, a whole lot of unanswered questions, really. It all centers around Matt Livelsberger, a veteran, life takes a dark turn, ends in a Cybertruck explosion outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, just the location alone. But when you start looking into the messages Matt left behind, it's clear something was deeply wrong.
Absolutely, like these notes he left. Chilling glimpse into his mindset before the explosion, accusing American leaders weak and self-serving, calling for a wake-up call for the nation.
And it's sadly, we've seen this kind of rhetoric before. United Healthcare killings, for
Yeah,
instance.
that sense of disillusionment, drastic measures needed to spark change. But what makes Matt's case even more?
Oh, it's complicated for sure. He was planning to flee to Mexico,
To Mexico, wow.
believed he was being pursued by authorities, maybe the FBI, Homeland Security. And here's the big one. He held top secret security clearance.
So, access to highly classified information.
Exactly. Raises serious questions about his claims, what he might have known.
And then you factor in the conspiracy theory. Some say he was already dead before the explosion.
Well, his passport and ID were intact at the scene, so.
Right, right.
And then there's the question of how the bomb was detonated. Timer, circuit, simple fuse. Each method suggests a different level of planning, maybe accomplices.
It's just layer upon layer. But in the midst of all this, Matt's own words, they show doubt, fear. Email from December 31st. He's worried about being intercepted before Mexico. He writes, "In case I do not make it to my decision point or the Mexico border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until January 1 and keep my identity private until then. I am not under duress or hostile influence."
Wow, yeah, haunting. A preemptive goodbye. He knew the weight of what he was carrying.
And his emails hint at sensitive government operations, war crimes even, suggesting a heavy burden of guilt, maybe stemming from his military background. He even mentions concerns about China, gravitic propulsion systems.
And that's a, if true, game changer in terms of global power
For
dynamics.
sure.
But it also speaks to a larger trend, right? Technology, surveillance, global powers, it can fuel a lot of anxiety, paranoia.
Absolutely, especially for someone like Matt, with his background. So we have a veteran driven to a potentially tragic act,
Hmm.
haunted by his past, consumed by suspicions. But there's a piece we haven't talked about yet, the Cybertruck itself. Was it just a means to an end, or was there some symbolic significance?
That's a great question. And the explosion itself, what can we learn from the forensic evidence? And the choice of location. The Trump Hotel, so public, symbolic.
So many questions.
Eh.
And we'll start to answer them in the next part of our deep dive.
We'll delve deeper into the explosion, the symbolism, what it all means for this complex and unsettling story. Picking up on this idea of betrayal, it's vital to understand just how disillusioned Matt was with American leadership. He really felt they'd abandoned the country's founding principles, a deep sense of betrayal there.
Yeah, and it wasn't just about abstract political ideals. He hinted at being involved in military actions that really troubled him. Adds another layer to his internal struggles.
Absolutely, and this brings us to veterans' mental health. Sadly, Matt's story isn't unique. So many veterans carry the psychological weight of their experiences, especially those involving morally ambiguous situations.
Yeah, it's heady stuff, and you can imagine how those internal battles, they might be magnified by exposure to certain conspiracy theories. We know Matt was worried about government surveillance, covert operations, themes that pop up in some online communities.
Right, and that's where critical thinking and media literacy becomes so important. Questioning authority, healthy skepticism, that's one thing. But falling down a rabbit hole of unfounded claims and paranoia, that's another thing entirely.
It's a tough balance, isn't it? Encouraging critical thinking without dismissing genuine concerns, or the very real trauma that veterans often carry.
It is complex, no easy answers. I think it starts with open dialogue, empathy, a willingness to understand the nuances of these issues, creating safe spaces for veterans to share their experiences and access reliable information, support.
You're right, we can't just lump all veterans together, or assume anyone expressing unconventional views is mentally unstable.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the diversity of experiences within the veteran community, approaching each individual with respect, a willingness to listen, and fostering a media landscape that promotes critical thinking, responsible information sharing.
Okay, so we've talked about Matt's mental state, the influence of conspiracy theories, but we haven't really touched on the Cybertruck itself. It's such a unique vehicle, so attention-grabbing. Could that choice have been symbolic? Or was it just a means to an end?
That's a great point. The Cybertruck is a striking choice. Futuristic and, yeah, potentially symbolic. Investigators will likely be looking into whether it was a deliberate statement
Mhm.
about technology, power, maybe even American consumerism.
And then there's the explosion itself. We talked about timers, circuits, fuses. What are the forensic experts saying about the device and how it was detonated?
The specifics are still being analyzed, but we know it was powerful enough to cause significant damage. Understanding the bomb's construction could give us clues about Matt's planning, his technical expertise.
It's also worth noting that he chose a very public, very symbolic location, the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. What are your thoughts on that choice?
It's definitely a layer we can't ignore. Was it a statement against a specific political figure, ideology, a location of opportunity, or maybe a deeper personal connection to the site?
We know Matt was increasingly disillusioned with American politics, with society. It's possible he saw this as a way to make a statement against what he perceived as corruption, decline.
And we have to remember the context, 2025. Heightened political polarization, social unrest. Those societal tensions could play a role in shaping his mindset.
So we're left with a lot of factors here. A veteran wrestling with his past, possible exposure to conspiracy theories, a dramatic and public act, and these messages that offer a glimpse into his troubled mind.
As we keep piecing together the events leading up to the explosion, we have to keep asking ourselves, what can we learn from this? What lessons can help prevent similar incidents?
And those are questions we'll keep exploring. But now, let's shift our focus to the aftermath of the explosion, the ongoing investigation. What can we expect to see unfold in the coming days and weeks?
Well, I think investigators will be carefully analyzing the footage of Matt before the incident, like we talked about earlier. They'll be scrutinizing his communications, his digital footprint, any physical evidence collected at the scene.
Hopefully, as more information comes out, we can start to piece together a more complete picture of what happened.
Absolutely, and it's crucial that we approach this with patience, a commitment to uncovering the truth, even if it's unsettling or complex. This isn't just about solving a crime, it's about understanding the human story behind it, using that understanding to create a more compassionate and informed society.
That's a really good point. Matt's story, as troubling as it has the potential to teach us valuable lessons about mental health, the impact of misinformation, the importance of critical thinking.
It does, and while the investigation continues, new details emerge. It's an opportunity for us to reflect on these issues, consider what we can do to prevent similar tragedies in the future.
Well said. And to our listeners, we'll be back soon with part 3 of our deep dive. We'll examine the aftermath of the explosion, explore the broader implications of this case. Stay tuned. We're back, and, we've spent the last 2 parts really getting into this. Well, the deeply unsettling story of Matt Livelsberger, a veteran whose life ended in that Cybertruck explosion outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, his disturbing messages, those plans to flee to Mexico, the conspiracy theories. But now, as we reach the end of our deep dive, it's time to kind of zoom out, look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's tragic, obviously, but Matt's story, it really highlights those challenges veterans face, the dangers of misinformation, the need for mental health awareness.
For sure, it's clear Matt was struggling. Deep anxieties, disillusionment, felt betrayed by the government, convinced of this hidden truth.
And that's the thing, those feelings, they're not unique to Matt. A lot of veterans grapple with similar emotions, the trauma they've experienced, the weight of the classified information they carry.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Someone in that state of mind, feeling betrayed, isolated, they might turn to conspiracy theories for answers, especially now. Social media, echo chambers, information overload.
Absolutely, we're bombarded with information constantly. Separating fact from fiction is getting harder and harder. That's why it's so important, those critical thinking skills. Be wary of sources that just confirm what you already believe.
So then, how do we navigate this? Veterans' mental health, misinformation. Where do we even begin?
It's a big question, right? And I think we have to recognize these are multifaceted problems. They need a multi-pronged approach. Personally, we can all try to be more discerning about the information we consume, challenge our own assumptions, engage with different viewpoints respectfully.
Okay, that's personal. What about on a larger societal level?
We need to really invest in mental health resources, especially for veterans. They face unique challenges. And media literacy, critical thinking skills, that needs to be part of our education system.
It seems like just having open and honest dialogue is essential too. Create spaces where these tough conversations can happen. Talk about controversial topics without fear-mongering or demonizing different views.
Exactly, finding common ground even when we disagree, working towards a more informed and compassionate society.
So Matt Livelsberger's story, as unsettling as it does hold valuable lessons.
Mm.
And maybe by learning from this tragedy, we can prevent similar events from happening.
That's the hope, right? To learn, to grow, to work towards a better, more understanding future.
Well said. And to our listeners, keep this conversation going. Share your thoughts, your questions, your insights. Let's use this as an opportunity to learn and grow and work towards a brighter future. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.